سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله الكرماء وأصحابه الشهداء وعلى من بسنته اقتدى وإليها دعا. نرجو الله سبحانه وتعالى أن كسلنا النبي يوم من كده محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم أنا دمبايا البي أنا صحابة البي أنا مومو يا لونكو ألو تلا تران سلو كان فجأة نتمم من دم بي بنيولا جلو جولا. كال حكيلو بلانديكو البي لموي كان الفلا FM 107.2 Allah radi bumba men kala dina bungo radi bungo timme ya lonka bali jang puru kal karandi anin kal hakilo bulandi fenna especially membe den ni Allah dino me yalan ko me yalon kan Allah balu buka fono nyoko Allah balu fakira passion te wallahi kata publicly bang fem me yalon ko be den nim balu wala dino ni buka fo ko ni radio bi lore jang pour kamul enlighten kamul sensitize o dino nyinna ko le fanala ñemu special edition te me yalon ko nga organize nga jeko ajarata le pour ngake ngalon ko mba wato le kono mba time le kono ba woni fem findite me yalon ko abe dendi nin dino la ngalon ko numo mata jang dimmo mo diam tala ngaji ko alfala fana be radio le kono me yalon ka jarata pour ka diam mo to sifalla bara manke fente ko nga fa nyame na manke kamul sensitize kamul hakilo bulandi kamulu mamandi fana pour ko kuna hapunta membe den dino la wala be na balu la wala ban den fenfete nan satani hakilo la ngatani londo la ngatani hakili ma yala fana akana ke fente me yala ka be talani jusol la abe talani kamfal la abe kalani fitnol la wala be kala ke nyonne ngoni nyoto nyoni nyobatarol ta kana ke wasifati bara ke fente me yala ka nin kumfa bita anin hakili ma ya bita anin londo bita anin hikma fana bita lafta ka ke wala nyam so wala tan nga programme ni organize ninna baadimol ben yalan ko ben fejang comme modol men yalan ko mankala luntanti aliyelom men kada Cheikh Omar Bojanti anim brother Malik Diouf me yalan ko ñul be mo expert led because mbe diam ka issue menna abe denni fena membe denni karango nin karandirola barabe denni fena men denni hadamadiya nyantola barabe denni fena la me yalan ko fana be denni ni molla dino la molla blu wala molla sinyo yani na hakul tankanya abe denni bo belal ando be fena me yalan ko abe karango le kono abe karan dinkira lelto abe karandir lalle la koto abe karandingol le fan la koto so ni membe den ko wambe o nyama wo mu fenati men ka related to wala ni febe den ka fami education min moldi mo molte men yalon ko alhamdulillah ko men nga fa nyama Cheikh Omar Bojang ameta senior teacher la mate government me yalon ko over 20 years abe karandro government system o kono ngaje ko mo sifa ku jamale beje me yalon ko se londo kala ba se keno modol fon le benyum problème ko non kada men sara jang askeno wol dol jani ka wulu Omar ñol sifal be karandol probably wala se keno hani mol be je men yalon koy man tan kite ko no bari be affect ni sifal la askeno jani dol sifal ka wulu Omar ñol sifal be karandol Malik fana the same thing afana molti me yalon ko ameta système ñin ko no karandol système ñin ko la jama ma birin jam fu santoto afana meta sangi jama be système ñin ko no karandol la ani o sifal so ngajo ko nit ñi sifa be kedi nga be jarle mol na fe me yalon ko they are equal to the task to nyata njikita ko isa doko ni sa kino nyamale isa topic ni sa handle no nyamale membe den nin dino la membe den nin karango nin karandro fanala anin hadama diala nyanto nyinku sabo lelbeje so wala tan takuni men fana balla jang alhamdulillah mfana mam me ba ka teaching but alhamdulillah we are all educationists this is mfana ngine karang ngine studies ngana research ka ngin ko lela mun kam manja ma beje ka be ka ni sifal na manke na do ko membe den radio la media do ko la na outside job jama be jabe ka den fene me yalan ko is related to education because ngine study ngine kara university ningi lel graduate ngana research ka nyun kolela alim fe nyama be den men so wana ngajo ko be jarala pour mol me yalan ko be nyin sifalto wala seb kumma ya baake pour ngol kuma ni nganyo kacandi nganyo hakilo bulandi akana ce kamfa kuti akana ka nyo attack fenti akana ka nyo neng akana ka nyo batar wala kaje ko dina karla ni dina ka o manke sifata membe je kamol enlighten anin kamol sensitize inshallah njikita ko moli ye concept nyim fahamle wala ye aim wala ngani yow menti ya fahamle munanda nyim programme ndata amma joko men dol sa fanya men ala time wala so time wala balbulu you alfa nyin it doesn't even make sense no wonder issue me alongo it has a fraud point to the point of me alongo even the permanent secretary of a ministry ajo ka tede no fa idea issue me alongo yajo ko even the Gambia High Court as futano jele mo be ka jaga o ma jakundinde o jata ka chala o ni ka man sense make aske ne to yalam but to nya mom yalan ko is a rational or compassionate being wo yalan ko to nya the issue it makes sense for nga kachala barabe sense make la ni arta ko kacata la manyo nenje manyo batar manyo to ko yaje barake fente mi yalan ko lolu abaden knowledge la ne wisdom Omar na introduction of fanuta back I want you to anu fana mbela fila purunga kanjama fana fajam English mandinka ani wolof pour ñinka mako mo be se dengala be se ñoo faham ko ñin ko Umar mbela fila puru ya badi ngul kontong ya program mo yele then I have a lot of questions for you then bina yeah in English and then I will come to Malik
alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walahum bi ihsanid din thank you very much Lamin alhamdulillah with pleasure and dignity to be invited to this very important platform to discuss about a national issue which should be a concern to every concerned citizen of this country. Sure. To discuss matters, to be able to consolidate and strengthen our relationship for peace to prevail. So definitely I think viewers and the listeners would follow the program and trying to digest the information that will be given today. But as the moderator highlighted, our aim and intention is to make peace, is to ensure that peace prevails in this country. We live in peace irrespective of our differences, our religious differences, and so on. So this is the aim of the program, and inshallah we will do our best to ensure that we enlighten people so that they are informed, because when people are not informed, they cannot take rational decisions. Thank you very much, Lama.
Yes, I am not surprised. I am also very eager to learn today. Alhamdulillah, I have very well respected brothers with me here, and like I said, very well experienced in terms of the field that they are in, which is the field of education and also even on Islamic studies. The man just spoke right now is a very well known in the field of education. I think the Gambia public education system, the Islamic studies textbook that most of the school, if you go there, you will find there comprehensive Islamic studies. It is used by the government schools. It's written by Umar A. Boja, and that person is the one we have here. And next, I will allow Malik. Malik, we want you to help us in Wolof because we have diverse people out there, and we want the message to go across. So we want you to, welcome our Wolof brothers and sisters in the program and our uncles and aunts.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jërëjëf Lamin, sa programme bi am na solo lool te programme bi ñu ngi ko andi rek pour indi leeral si li nga xamante ni kenn réerewul ko mbir ne mu ngi happen si yeneen school yi si Gambia. Suñu waxee nag school si waxuñu school yi yëpp waaye am na si yenn school yi nga xamante ni ñoom dafa dee am te loolu li nekkut waxi tey yàgg na. So su ñëwee ba nga xamante ni comme moom nu nga ko waxee àgg na ba high court fi nga xamante ni ñëpp foofu lañ yaakaar pour ñu jox ñu suñu right kon lii dafa nekkal li nga xamante ni dañ ko war a waxtaanee te suñ koy waxtaanee nag ñu war a wax mooy ñi nga xamante ni ñoom suñu waxee dañoo isi jàmm ñoo war a wax waaye ñi nga xamante ni ñoom suñ ñëwee dañoo ñëw ak xuloo wala ay saaga ñooñu dégga ñooñu war a ñëw wax parce que lii dañ ko bëgg a isi pour nga xamante ni ñu isi jàmm si dëkk bi. Because ñu ñëpp ñoo bokk dëkk bi su dut diine boo bokk rek ñoo bokk dëkk bi soo su fekkee ne lu xew comme problème mel ni dafa xew kon dafa baax ñuy wax ñoom ñu wax di sàmm jàmm nga gis jàmm yàgga suñ réew mi comme que ñun tëj neen moo daan 10 years maa ngay jàngale te jàngale naa from this combo to dem be si dëkki kaw yi jàngale naa si school yi mission school jàngale naa si Ahmadiyya school jàngale naa tamit si board school mooy government schools yi so I have touched all schools laa naa school yëpp so xam naa school bu nekk lan moo fa nekk te loolu moo tax nag tey ñu ànd ñu fii pour ñu def ay leeral waaye nekkul ne dañ ñëw fii pour attaque o leneen so ñu ngi leen di ñaan ngeen déglu ñu ak xel ba ñu dégloo xool incha allah lépp li nga xamante ni mën nañ ko fay leeral incha allah dinañ ko leeral ma delloowaat kàddu si Lamin jërëjëf.
Thank you, Jerejef Malik. So It's important we highlight what actually we are here for. Recently, a few days ago, we've learned that there are few female students in so many schools that felt that their rights or religious rights or individual rights have been violated by denying them to wear their headscarf, veil, which is normally called hijab. So they felt that they are denying them to do this has infringed upon their rights, and they felt that they have to take a legal way to make sure that they settle the matter to the court, not to the street, or to violent, or to insult, or to fight, or to do any other thing, but they said, okay, we live in a civilized society, and we live in a society that is run by constitutions. So any matter that we have, it is matured, and it is right also we take matter to the court and we allow the judges to decide our fate. So this is what happened. Few schools have been sued to court, I think with 2 ministries. So it has brought a lot of controversies, a lot of talks and arguments. Some have gone beyond the expected by arguing, by insulting, by framing others, by accusing others of being violent or this and this and that, which we felt it is not necessary. The Gambia is our Gambia, and it belongs to all of us. So whatever happened in this country, I believe there are people here who can adequately deal with issues without insulting, without framing others, without falsely accusing others of being ignorant or being stupid or being nonsensical or things like that, as used by some other people on the media. You ate your breakfast or your lunch or your dinner, your tummy, your belly become full, you ate your juice. You could not do any other thing but to sit in your bed or in your room and say whatever you want to say. We believe the matured people are beyond this. We used to use accurate platforms, good platform to express ourselves and to also enlighten. And that's actually what we are doing today. So we want to deal with the matter in a very unique way. And that is, we know that some of these things are not new. It's like history is repeating itself. Other things have been happening. A lot of things happened before, years ago. So we want to go back to the history to analyze how religious education is being introduced in schools here, private and public schools. And also we look at the issue of the matter we have at hand here, banning hijab or denial of wearing hijab in schools. It's a matter of individual right, violation of right, or protection of right. It's about individual. It's not about a matter or a problem between one religion to another. It's not that matter. This matter, let me say specifically, it's not a problem between Muslims and Christians. These are few students who felt that their rights are being violated by another people or institutions. And they take matter to the court. It has nothing to do with one religion to another, as some people will highlight it, which is actually not the matter. We want to also delve into this matter. And then the third topic that we have, which is the final topic for today's segment, is to talk about tolerance, promoting tolerance and peaceful coexistence. I always say that these are some of the things that we are actually proud of. Anywhere we are, we can raise our voice and say that yes, Gambia, even though if you look at the margin in terms of the percentage in the population, you can look at the big margin. But with all that, we are sitting here peacefully, with respect, with honor. We always cherish each other. We are friends. Some of us have even families. This is something that we have, and these are legacies that we want to make sure that it continues. So we want to also touch on this matter so that people will also stay away from making it like a matter between one religion to another, but they look at it as a right of few individuals are being violated by other institutions or other individuals. This is how simple it is. And then I believe that if we talk about the matter in this lane, there won't be no insult, there will be no allegation upon other group of religious group or something. It will not get to that end. So Omar, we start with the first topic. It is important, like I said, we go back to the history and analyze some of these things, how this whole thing came up, how religious institution was to be introduced here in private, in government schools. These are some basics that we want to start from before we get to the matter, Omar. We can also look at the pre-colonial era, the colonial era, post-colonial era, and see the first regime, the second and the third, and currently where we are, so that people will have a better understanding of what actually is happening.
Thank you very much, Lamin. I think looking at the historical perspective in this matter would enlighten many people, because definitely this has a history in this country, and a very wide history. So it's better for people to understand what transpired, how it started, how it evolved, where we are today. Actually, this country, as you said, is a religious country, mainly Muslims, almost 96%, and our brothers Christians, approximately 4%. And religious education always goes with the introduction of that particular religion. So it goes together. Once you are introduced to a religion, definitely the first thing that they do is to teach you that religion. So religious education in this country is connected to the introduction of these religions here. And Islam was the first to be introduced here. According to historians, in Western Sudan, Islam was introduced in the 8th century. But specifically in the Gambia, according to historians, based on earlier records, it was 1015 in the 10th century. So basically, you would say in the Gambia, Islamic studies started in the 10th century because it was during the introduction, the first phase of Islam in this country, when people through trade and other things, scholars came, converted people to Muslim. Most importantly, the rulers, they were converted to Islam, and they learned Quran. And, literally it was good for them because it was an opportunity for the rulers also to be able to, administer their kingdoms or whatsoever, through writing of letters and records and so on. So as far as Islam is concerned, one could comfortably say that, religious studies was introduced in this country in the 10th centuries. Then later, we have Christianity also came with colonization. And when they came, they built schools. And in these schools, basically was to teach the natives to be able to read and write, to be able to do basic mathematics, arithmetics. And in doing so, they were able to have people to be able to propagate their religion, because colonialism came with Christianity, and colonialism promoted Christianity. So schools were built, and children were enrolled, so that they could baptize others to become priests and clerics, and others to work for them as clerks, because in those days, how much you are educated as a black person, you can only be a chief clerk. You cannot go beyond that. So definitely, so colonial rule, definitely, when they colonized this country, they established schools. And one of the aims of colonialism is to change people's civilization. And the civilization that was found here was Islam. People were Muslims. And they introduced their schools and to teach people. And one of the aims of colonization also is to spread Christianity. And one of the easiest ways to spread an ideology is to establish institutions where young people would be taught, would be oriented. And, during that you can also, include your religious teaching. So for in our public schools, it was only Christian teachings that was included in the colonial days, because that was to their interest, to be able to spread Christianity in this country. And this is how it continued even to after independence. Still, the education sector was in the monopoly of the Christian missionaries in this country, different denominations. And through that, they were promoting their religion, because that was the core mission, to make sure that people understand their message and people convert to their religion. And according to historians also, in Banjul, Muslim students were attending these mission schools. They were attending them, but there was no Islamic religious teaching in those formal education system, those schools, different from the teaching of Bible and other Christian doctrines. So Banjul Muslim elders definitely went to Governor Denton Biden and request that although their children attend St. Augustine and other schools, in the morning, that is good for them because they will learn skills and so on. But something very big was missing was to know their religion. And this is important. Despite they are going to these schools to learn other skills, but still their religion, they were concerned about the religion of the children. So this was how Mohammedan school was. Mohammedan school came up in 1906. It was purposely built for that. So when Muslim students attend other schools in the morning, then they would attend that school in the evening or in the afternoon to read Quran and Arabic and Islamic studies. So basically, this was going, and all the public schools, the government schools, the missionary schools, the missions, there was no formal Islamic religious education. Although we have our karantas, our daras in many areas, who were teaching people, but that was in an informal way and in different parts of the country. So this was the only area. But as far as the conventional schools were concerned, definitely there was no Islamic religious teaching. Now, after independence, after when we got the Republican status in the early 70s or in the 70s, by then Alhaji MC Cham, who was the Minister of Education, according to history, he introduced Islamic religious teaching in schools because the reason was very clear and very obvious that as much as we want by then many people were going to conventional school because initially Gambians resisted these conventional schools. Majority of Gambians, refused to send their children to school. But after independence, people started going to school. So we've seen that it was obvious that many children, Gambian children, are going to these conventional schools. So as much as you want them to be educated, to be able to work, to be able to have other skills, but still, is their fundamental right to know their religion, because that would have been a recipe of disaster, teaching people, young Gambians, Muslims, and without injecting Islamic education into the education sector. And when it came, it was resisted by mission schools. It was resisted because definitely that was never their interest, and they never wanted that, and still you can see the same resistance. So obviously for Islamic studies to be incorporated into our education sector, the mainstream education sector, it was in the 70s. And then as we go, as it started growing, and alhamdulillah today, all schools are mandatory to offer those courses because it is not a preference, but it is a need, because Muslim students are going there. So definitely they need to be educated. And the system is very clear that, both Christians and Muslims have right to their religious teaching in schools. So basically is for many decades, Muslim students were going to those schools without having access to education, Islamic education, except those who will go to Dara after school and maybe holidays and so on. But as far as formal education is concerned, it was only the Christian knowledge that was taught in schools for many years. Then when the dynamic changes in 70s, it was introduced. Well, it was also not very strong by that time. But as we go now, definitely we've seen how it grows. Where right now the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education has a very comprehensive syllabus for upper, lower, upper, and the senior secondary school. So, in a nutshell, this is how religious studies, both the Christian religious and Islamic studies introduced, and this is how they are right now. Thank you.
This is very important, Omar. Thank you very much for taking us a very long journey from around the 8th or 10th century down to where we are right now. It's very important and it's very interesting as well. And I believe that some of us will actually learn from the revelation that we are made here. I will come to Malik. I know these are some of the things that we want to focus on, and I want you to also come in Wolof and with regards to just briefly what Omar just said, and also how this whole thing, like introduction of Islamic education in public education system, especially missionary schools and things like that. You said you taught in government school, private school, even board schools. And I have known you for a while now in the system. And I believe that there are a lot that we can learn from you. Please take us to a brief journey in Wolof. And over, I will come to you in Mandinka, inshallah. You just summarize just what you just highlighted here in Mandinka, inshallah.
Okay, jërëjëf Lamin di kontaan rek si Omar lu mu wax parce que lu mu wax ak li ma bëgg a wax dafa ànda dafa mel ni sax dafa ma jàppale tuuti parce que wax na si Islamic education though suma focus si history of Islamic education is not that much waaye lu mu si wax dafa ma jàppale parce que man lu ma xam mooy ne moom wax na léegi 100 years ago mooy ne 1000 years ago fekk Islam ba léegi comme moom mu wax ba léegi 10th century ba léegi kon mais 1000 years ago Islamic education dugg na Gambia in Africa and in Gambia. We all know the history of the ñoo xam ne lan moo nekk history mooy missionaries yi before missionaries is the colonial masters yi ñoo njëkk a ñëw balaa missionary di ñëw so missionary ñu ngi arrive fii in 1824 te loolu yàggut soo ko xoolee 800 years bu Islam ñëwee si la missionary soog a ñëw so da nga gis ne missionary schools itam bu ñëwee fii in 1824 under the directives of the governor of Sierra Leone lay ñëw fi both the Anglican and the other missions they came here to open schools waaye soo gisee ñoom school yu ñu open comme ni ko kii waxee ñoom si schools yi si curriculum bi soo ko xoolee curriculum dafa uti ak subjects suñu ne curriculum dafa am activities yoo xam ne ni dañ ko dee def foofu noonu waaye soo ñëwee si subjects da ngaa fekk si curriculum bi subject yi am na yoo xam ne mu ngi si curriculum bi nekkul si subjects yi dañ ko dee jàng so loolu dañ ko war a understand mooy comme nit ki dafay ñëw ak mission am fekk du la wax lu mu bëgg a def si school bi ñoom bu ñu ñëwee then involve everybody dañ ñëw pour jàngale skill ak nga jàngale comme xam-xami tubaab loolu lañ ñëw wax suñ nit yi involve everybody nag school bi da nga gisee parent teachers association mu ngi fa Muslim elders they are part of the committees and they form a board ñu form a ministry in the ministry you have the director moom moo amee affaire yi jàngale bi so yow di nga gis ne history of the ministry moo amee affaire yi schooling si Gambia ñoom they form that dañ ko form at an early stage since 1914 go in the 19th century they form all those things so dañ ko defar so nga gis ne yow noonu doo am ñaari comme sikki saka soo gisee ne ministry bi ñoom most of the time da nga gisee si beneen religion mooy christian yi ñoo dee nekk head bi most of the time that's the history loolu daf fi yàgga ñoom ñoo isi loolu fii nii comme ni ko Omar waxee there was nothing like formal comme Islamic education defuñ ko comme school yi ni nga koy defee comme tey nga am arabe school yi nu mu mel ni defuñ ko woon loolu comme lifin la rek comme ñu ngi ko ay majalis yi nekk si daara yi waaw yooyu la rek nekk si jumaa bi jàngee foofu maa ngi am foo leen defar rek di jàng foofu noonu diine xam nga ñoom diine la ñoo jàngale wuñ comme skill si nii waaye tubaab bi bu ñëwee comme noonu la ñu naxee wax ne dañoo jàngale skill waaye curriculum bi si boppam dina am attending church dina am singing Christian songs si curriculum bi waaye yow doo ko gis si subject si so da nga gis ne loolu yëpp moo nekk si biir waaye ñoom pour ma wax le comme school si ne ñoom seen aim and objective first and foremost lu ñu fesal lu ñu wan nit ñi mooy ne ñëwuñ pour jàngale Christian day ñëw pour jox leen skill pour nga mun a develop even one of their aims and objectives maa ngi amee most of their policies here comme di ko read dafay waste time waaye mooy ne comme rek to give back to the community comme tey rek nu mu mel rek soo jàngee physics nga yow nekk physicien nga give back to the community ñëwuñ fi pour def waaye nag secretively comme si ron secret bi si ron mooy ne pour promote Christianity waaw loolu sax kenn bañul ko moo tax lu Omar wax dafa ànda suñ demee ba si kanam paay si boppam suñ mag yi xam ne ñun suñ xale yi dañ nekk di jàngee si school bi waaye nekkuñ di am xam-xami diine te ñoom xam na ne xam-xami diine mooy force ku nekk rek dafa fekk yow sa diine dafa am lum nangu ak lum nanguwut dafa am tamit loo xamante ni loolu moo si mooy pas-pas bi lu ko angal di wax fundamentals loolu nag su fekkee ne comme nekkul foofu noonu dafa mel ni yow sa dunda amul njëriñ si diine islam na den ne soo jàngut islam dafa mel ni yow sa dunda amul njëriñ so loolu moo tax paay dem ñaan loolu pour ñu dugal ko si curriculum ñuy jàng Islamic studies ñoom tamit ngay dugal fa Christian religious knowledge ñu equal foofu noonu léegi waaye di nga gis ne curriculum bi is more of promoting Christianity than any other else so loolu moo nekk di law ba tey waaye di nga gis ne school si mission school leen waaye it was on the ministry moo amee policies and everything to implement even the permanent secretary mooy di moom war a amee comme di policy makers moo ko war a implement waaye su ko war a implement dafa des si parlement bi and the cabinet ñoom noonu lañ ko waxee woon directors of the parliament ak the cabinet ñoom ñooy push di permanent secretary ñoom ñoo war a change rules si schools yi so schools yi seen rules yi dafa depend on the people living in that country depending on ne loolu is a comme like fundamental la si Christianity so foofu leen war a understand ne schools yi rules yi ñu defar tey nekku ne dañ ko defar based on the Christian doctrine dañ ko defaroon rek based on the community ñu dekkoon foofu te ministry bi ñoo ko amee woon te moo tax ministry bi da nga gis ne seen most of these seen xees yëpp dafa nekk most of time dafa nekk Christian soo muslim génnee rek di nga gis Christian moo fa dee gën a bari daan muslim loolu moom daf fi saxoon te ñun loolu leen mën a jàngat ne loolu moo tax so lu ma bëgg a gën a fesal mooy ne que school rules and regulations yi basuñ ko si Christianity doo ne Christian yi ñoo ko fi isi missionary secretively pour dundal Christianity waaye soo ko gisee rules yi were formed by our own Gambian people they put them together because of without influencing the Gambian without putting the Gambian part of this school si duñ doon taxaw comme ki li nga ko waaye suñu mag yi dañ ko doon resist so that's why ñu defal rules yi te rules yi were formed based on the people's culture and tradition ak luñ gëm noonu lañ ko defaree woon so tey su ñëwee ba tey certain school ñu ngi wax ne is part of the rules kon rule yooyu kon kan moo ko fi dugal tey ak kan moo ko influence at what time lañ ko influence ba nit ki su defee hijab dañ ko war a génne loolu mooy njaa jërëjëf Lamin.
Thank you. I'm not surprised though. Thank you so much, Malik. Umar, I will come back to you. You just briefly explain in Mandinka, because as we said, this is a sensitization forum, and we want to make sure that we have a wider coverage, and we want to make sure that everybody who is listening or watching this, you see yourself in. That's why we just don't want to stop at English language. We want to make sure we include at least Wolof and Mandinka so that everybody will see themselves as part of the program. Just give us a brief explanation of what you've just said in English.
Before I go to that, I think I need to adjust this to my statement. Then I try to see how briefly I'll do in Mandinka. Now, we were talking about religious studies in the Gambia. And after the introduction of Islamic studies also in early 70s in public schools, it was not satisfactory, especially to our scholars here, to our leaders. They've looked at the issue and they've realized that this was not sufficient because it was not done properly. But alhamdulillah, it was just an introduction phase. This is what prompted majority of them to also establish Islamic schools, because still Gambians believe that definitely our children are going to these schools, they are not having Islamic studies, and the Islamic studies that has been introduced so many schools, it was just a formality, just to convince people. But what it meant was not exactly that what was happening in schools. So people still want to read their religion. So scholars who studied in different parts of the world, when they came back, some of them were employed or were approached to be employed in schools, in conventional schools, in government schools. But when they went, some of them, they realized that definitely this is not enough and our people need something better than this. They came back and established, private schools, Islamic schools. For example, the Gambia Islamic Union Talinding, it was 1963, then followed by, Tadam.
Before independence.
Yeah, before independence.
1963.
Yes, so you see, all these people, they came up with schools to make sure that, the gap, Muslim students should understand their religion. So this is all part of, Islamic studies or religious studies. So today you can see many schools. This is the history. Lamina baraka bake coming bemin kacha kanja wolem dina karango nata Gambia ja nyami anabi ja nyami. Coming amin for don dino nata dun tatinen karango la kananyola. Ni modun dino do kufole kamin kolon ka karandi wo dino la kandu ate dino la kulu sambono nama londo soto. Min ka fo wole muslimi ala dungo kana Africa la jamma fala Western Sudan ikafo dul kafo 8th century o musanji jama ti sanji wuli jama ti koma o sanji wuli kilini fe then bar Gambia jang comme na tarik safira le min fo wolem ko muslimi ala dungo Gambia jang min ya dunu ja wolem nyin julawulti arabul nim babalu mi wona North Africa comme kany wafirol min gede inata muslima ya dunu jang 10th century ma fon la wolem 1015 kabiri muslima ya dundi jang wudmo e mansa kelni maral lalle tara jang mi yatne gagneta baake fam pour mo jama ke muslimolti wo mansa kelu jama yo le soto ke tubindi ke muslimolde kabiri ye tubindi ke muslimolti inate karandi wo karan kono mansa kelu ya fan tonya o nyin londo fon betaran to kandu amno ko ben dino da mala bare na maroro be sonyalam bulle nse kara sefero ke ngal letaro sefe ngal na ben banku marala nyami sa safeno onata kinna mo jang jam mo jama kata muslimoti jam wato kabiro kata dron e mol karandi mol fana ya kuma sika nyo karandi ameta karanta lota mol tamate karanta majisol lota mol karando ke fo tubabul la mararo nata kabin tubabul la mararo nata ya tara ko jang mo jama biji muslimol lam foka pare adu be dino to de adun tubabul la mararo kabila kabin fi colonialism inata yemara inata umararo kono fa inata dina do nata na miyalan kolum christianity de kandu christianity anin tubabol la mararo nata nyora anin tubabol la mararo nata so kabiri wolu nata e karambol lo kandu tubabol la maro damma manki don ko damma kam maranna kan na furu sika ka samba bara bela miro fanango kandu yaji ko tulmu molati miyalan ko man civilized man kunin waran dino limbembul waran aru limbembul fa ada kuto na dan dina kuto adon dino limbembul wolem christianity so inada christianity nati gambia jang inada karam mollo pour que christianity dun janjandi ya tra muslimolu gambia jang mol meta muslima kono adu mole lundu so muslima kono kandu gadi dum na ko sanji keme jamal muslima be already mole dino karam mole dino faham wala sayanga dino kuto nati wolem be mina gelam be molu karandidan nada karambungol lo o karambungol lo ta dele jamala kan bara kum ab mi warto dele lo kono wolon kamulu ta ke tubindi ke samba nyim dina dodo ko min dina kam ngi ni ta da kala fi kamulu na ke tubindi inada karambungol lo folo fen saba ko wala karanje baka wala be safero ken no nyamin ebe fe mo karando la nyaadi ebe kontiro fanan ken no nyamin kaji ko inatle inin molle bina dukol o de solata dukol la solata mol bulle minyalango ibe karra kanna soro kele e solata molle minyalango fa nile kawmoy ibe karre karandire dino le se molu pour ka dino nyinta ka janjana nara tubabo lo mararo kono e mararo ka meta e o karam molto ajida ko e to la dino ko karandi jele na karam molto minyalango muslima dino le bolto in 1906 Banjul Muslim elders warta governor minyalango le Banjul governor Dentin ni muslima kebal tata ka itata ya tandala ko to nyalem dingul kata nyin babu karam molto e ka karanje somanda bare mbella fulem fana ngot la so dami yalan ko ni jita en karam molto e se karta pour que la dinolo kantu laftele to babu karanke bare malle fe kila dino fana ko londi suto balya ke la dino to o manque not tubabo la interesting to nyabe damin kantu ila capitol nata e muslime a suppressed wala sita muslime a kanne kandu ila fa fendole dina dole janjami manke gambia baro be kan anata dulalo e wala ne ka fa dabe Mohammedan school mimbe Banjul in 1906 sa muslimo kata ka ularo ko ba dara malemte e kata ka la dino ta ka karanje so tado nya fonga independence to o be wato niaji be kristano le la karam siada han independence ro ko la so ba la gutumo karon da bunda nan karon to karon ni abe to le bulo ko to le maratala adu to la nganiyo min de wala mkela dino nyinta ka janjande so mbole nyama ni min la fa dino karan ne bita daral to ran karantal to e dino karan bar ko min na karam bungol to ten muslima karam bungol tubaab kara wala man sakunda karam mutu de muslima dino bi ka karawodo so labon wala bi ka to follow muslimul jama fo bi ko son ke dingol kije kantu e jikita ko ni dingol kije fo le dino la so ke dingol ki ni karantal ni mori bungol le pour e karam bar labon la man sakunda na je ko okay bar bimbe kerin sa wala mo jama ba nyatlin kan tubaab karam ni nal kantu mo jama je ko jele mi ka ika londulu dulu so pour que la dunia balo so ndi nyame muslima jama wakil ta ke dingol ki o karambuŋo sako kabiriyaji ko muslima diŋol be karandirole je comme Sheikh Hata Bojañol be ñamol be karandiro kilo wato wo kola wol Hata Bojan kola Mohamed Lamine Touré ñol alama ala mendi ñaato jang bundeñol be so mol muslimol laji ok muslimol be karamude ka muslima karanje woto sayin alman diŋol sama mo jama ya commencé ke diŋol samba karamuto o be kata kabin kada 1970 ma fawti kabrin MC Cham mi encore le marta ministre marta dino la wonata ke anata ke luwati wala sa fo ko ay symbole kaje ko karambun bebe gambe jam muslima diŋol ñindile dino karande je folo nga jele ko balon tala kantu minu balantala o manke to la interesti kandu ni ñin dino do fananka karanjabe ko lalati lu bakele pour solata minna molo bulu ke tubindi ke sambel dino do abe kolya bag ya wo kono lem ya commencé ka dino karang muslima karang bongol do fosa alhamdulillah ni ajibe ka bon private school kata fo secondary school e syllabus o soto e curriculum o soto kaje ko sa dindingo dinding istano tubab karang la bari ila dino ila salinya ila senenya fo fi mi alon ko dino sulatala ni mari tara karammoto karando kata nyama e nyanta wolu sotolal lamin nyina na fanan kabirin keba folol tara karamala ara banko de murundana dulu bije do goldi la man sekunda pour karandiro ke wo karambondo bare kabiri koroslo ke folo balango nyimbiji la katina dulu bije nyanta watu min dila pour dindingo le muslima karabi ka dila oda kam do ko tarajile don to damma ko be bidina karana ba dina karon sembo ma woroje wa na do fo karandiro ko maso karambondo bay nate daha yaje ko hanide ndol ngamre ngo dindingol bela dino karana janga nyamale bado buka keno ina da karambol lo bin ka mo gambe islamic union wala karambolo tadamun ñol nata so karamol nata brikama islamic institute kaje ko okay nimi la fay dingo dino lo ngani talo na nyami definitely ñu lem karamol mi ko ñu dina karamol lede so la min tata wala nyama fo bi mbo kono say mimbe na luwalo to wala mimbe anka be tamaka bi wala muslimolu be nyanto sur le programme dino kare la karamoto wala na curriculum bija police bije fo mi cristiano ti ba ni tara karamoto imari nyanto karanno la je ni la fa karanna muslimo fa tara karamundo nyanta karanna je la kam do lamin ka kumo nyin sutiyandi be dana janna folo
baraka baki. Thank you very much Omar Boya. I am really enjoying us because this is very interesting. History atam fenti men kumata bake wa na han qur'ano kono Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ka history sen bake qur'ano kono abega ke mento don wulen ka mulka mulu kala mutande what is happening before because na ta mande ko kam fo ni me bod lalo ke tad lalo so men tambita kumata bake pour ngol long what was here before kul taratu nyadile before we came here men kono science tembe dia mo sara because so many people what happened before malon no how this whole thing started anata nyadile munel keta most of us malong so abu kumala pour ngalo mun tambira obe mako la pour ngada guess anim fana membe kirin science salon be diamu no la nyadil ananga men fo kumata baka wala mu mome yalon ko karanta e be fambulu hakilo yuruwata ni issue na te bukan ndroke ni mo moja rosta en ndroke tinyaro ka mul accuse rek memba bula mansia so ntol jama be ni wurta ranta dalal to tara social media la Facebook live yi wurte badara nke jibe don because membe bula mansia nina siyata non domi be sila le mole kacha ndolla ta nyina la malla nyina kata street ka fitno wulinde ka mo tayal jani ka wuro kumandi police wala nani yekele ndol malla wala you will never see that here anu malla nyim fana la ko kallo da kata mol nina kanyo malla wala we don't believe in that ndolla ta men wala mo londo nina sota ngaji ko nyanda fintlal because mo be masoto andunga be men bulu nyimmu ka wajibo pour ya frontini men masoto wala ya moyla because ni ya muta kan kalondo mabo me an ko mol sotale pour ka so ye tawte ye bulo yakay ma fintin ala dankaro le beji ahram tale islam kitmanul ilm kalondo mutay buka fontin so wala tan to kaje ko ni wurol men be ker nyin dol fenkere mu wurla len ron akam ta ko ron imam shafi'i bi kay ko kareba wuri kan be fin ko itaf ko akam dal ko ron wulo ni jato ko ni bitaka wulo ya wura jato no jato ya nyaka sa mani ba fa jato e man hañ ito fulay jato ka gele ko nyin tenter fulandi ni ntamala bulay ran na barara be dal fonde imam shafi wala fo ni wulo ya jato ya ka wura jato e de mama nyaka sa mani ga jato le buga hañ hani wonte jato la ka gele ko nyin menye dumale so wala na te fona ta ka je ko momente kala man ajabiro men kuma ya ta be wala nyaka sala e kenya ka sala wur na barata ke del so la ndul nga wur la je pram social media ka gelo ko mem bala bula man sia because na ser do mal belo lale mul kara lale mul ya kalam tamen be keri wa bar nen role ketare kam fal nata fo ka tara e be kilim bela bunko le be live video le e ka dia ubar fo ka tara ele bote je boro ete batare le de so okay now in yin kumata ba ke furunga history fo bar lafta damen to kuma wala nyinti ko all these things what happens here how this whole thing came up londo nyin introduce karamul to nyaadile nanyin christian because maliki ya fojang ngalon ko watol tamata watol men yalon ko some people were here, they attended the school, some daga they are taken to certain services me they don't even know what moti and that parents will never know that konna mol kanyin sifa they didn't take their children to those school for them to be taken to a singing or a church or something. Ngalon ko fana some people were there, they were converted. We don't know how they were converted. We don't know, but we know. Even our former president, I cannot increase a lot level. I wouldn't back. I cannot be slave. How those are all impact that happens. I want you to talk about some of the impact. Ninkul men kita mune impact wuru molla dinoldo molla balwolto ane wasifa.
In English. Thank you very much, Lamin. I think it is important that we look at the impact of these issues. Definitely, our brothers and sisters, majority of them are living witness that they went through a lot of difficulties going to through mission schools in respect to practicing their religion. Like prayers, like this, and it's not a secret that many of them still they are living with those emotions, those anger that they've been meted on them, depriving them from manifesting their religious activities in those schools. Definitely, it was subtly done. And an attempt to make sure that Muslim students, their rights to their fundamental rights to manifest their religion is being tampered upon. This has been going for so long, and people have been enduring this for so long, and a lot of things happen across this issue. So it was not easy, and it was by looking at the religious demography of this country, it is very unprecedented to see things happening in that way. Because in other countries, definitely, it should not happen, but even wherever it happens, you see it otherwise. But here in this country, you see how tolerant the majority Muslims are going through that, but still some people struggle to complete their schools under those circumstances. Some were even dropped out, some were expelled from schools, some could not take the heat, and if they don't have options, they leave school. Thank God, after when the education system has been liberalized, when the government, takes the responsibility of offering education to Gambians by building many schools, many classrooms, then we've seen a decline of that. And this is the trend that is continuing, because by then it was definitely education was in the hands of the missionaries, and they had that total control and monopoly on schools. So definitely, you either go to their schools, or in most cases, you will not go to school. But this is not the case anymore, and people have become so enlightened. People become awakened, what you call a sahwal Islamia, religious awakening. People understand their rights. People there understand. So this has been going, and people that are affected have been fighting for so long, and they were always taking the peaceful manner of these dialogues, conversations, to make sure that, okay, we're living in this country, we belong to different religion, but, we are all Gambians, and we all have fundamental rights as enshrined in the Constitution. So definitely, still you see some people, when they explain their ordeals, that they went through those systems, that deprive them from their religious activities, you can see that anger and that frustration with them. And we cannot continue accumulating that in this country. What we need is to ensure that we pave a way that will give us, that will create justice and fairness for everyone to practice your religion, for people not harboring some anger and so on for because they've been maltreated in one way or the other. So definitely this issue is very sensitive, but I think it's through dialogue and honest dialogue for that matter that we bring everything on the table and we discuss. Then we give people their due respect, irrespective of where they belong to. Then peace prevails.
Thank you, Omar. I will come to you again for Mandinka, and I'm coming to my brother, my personal person, Malik. It's important, just like how I highlighted, whatever happens has an impact, either negative or positive, and especially something that has to do with education. It is important we realize or we know that literacy is far different from education. Literacy and education are not the same. Yeah, literacy just is more like an ability to write and read, but education has to do with everything in human life. Your attitude, your character, how you deal with people, how you comport yourself, how you do this, how you do that. It's a unified whole when it comes to human life. That has to do with education. Things like that. And education also is another tool for to change human behavior, to change human perspective, to even indoctrinate human people. Education can be used as a tool for that. It can be used positively, it can be used negatively. In the name of education, you can do a lot. People can be enlightened, people can have salvation because of education, people can have their true sense of being a human through education. But people can also be deprived of who they are. I mean, the real sense of being a human because of the type of education that they enroll to. And they can also be enslaved, they can be indoctrinated, their mind can be polluted. But believingly, they might be put themselves in a system, thinking that they want to acquire knowledge and skills for them to live adequately in this life. But on the contrary, you may see that at the end of the day, they are being indoctrinated. I'm not saying that that's what actually happens. I'm not trying to give you what actually education, the power of education. That's what I'm trying to highlight here. Whatever we do, everything, especially things like that have an impact. Omar just mentioned few. On your own perspective, on your own opinion, or your own experience, what do you think were the impact of some of this history that you just highlighted? I want you to do it in Wolof.
Yeah, jërëjëf Lamin ak Omar si seen waxtaan bi rafet na comme na ko waxee rek dafa am solo lool ndax lu nekk rek dina am jeexintal wala olof lu mu wax jeexintal mooy impact. Soo ko xoolee western education bi moom li ooyee western education ak arabic education dañ ko war a differentiate, dañ ko war a divide ñu xaajale ko parce que su ñoo wax fii time bi lu ñu nekk di wax fii mooy conventional schools. su fekkee ne islamic education boobu moom foofu noonu ak Quran nga faa jàng amul dara la faa jàngal loolu diini soo ba pare daal imam ngay nekk mbaa nga nekk a preacher soo bëggoon benn christian dafa yóbbu doomam because soo ko fa yóbbu obviously dafaa nekk muslim loolu mooy impact bi obviously dafaa nekk muslim moo tax ñoom du leen fa yóbbu so su ñëwee si conventional school nag comme ni ma ko highlighté bu ñëwee mooy pour jàngal nit ñi skill waaye dafa am secret boo xamante ni loolu la tubaab bi they use in our schools te loolu moo nekk di change nit yi ay la du la change nga nekk christian waaye na la change nga nekk liberal muslim mooy muslim boo xam ni yow sa right doo ko xee everything is normal to you nit ki sol na veil deful kaala is normal to you foofu la de commence di change sa mind ñu bëri nag change na suñu mind like lu moo tax ñu ngi am this problem soo gisee ñu am this problem ñu ko xee bi métti dafa fekk ne 95% muslim bi 80% are liberal muslims so yooyu western bi moo ko cause mooy impact bi dangaa gis ne léegi comme li ma doon highlight secret bu nekk si biir mooy ne soo demee da ngaa jàng chemistry biology mathematics pop FLE yi ngaa jàng SCS waaye loolu soo ko gisee xale bi na ko jàng maa ngi gis yeneen school yoo xam ne every Thursday da ngaa dem church muslim nga christian nga da ngaa dem church boobu nag lu tax gaa def fa every Thursday da ngaa dem church nekkul pour christian yi because fekkee pour christian la ñooñu bari wuñ soo leen compter si 1000 students ñoom 20 la ñoo nekk par exemple waaye da nga gis ne loolu is to get them inside the church and to talk about Christianity there. It's extracurricular activities. That was sort of. Yooyu ngay jël nag picture ko because missionary school dafa amoon time yoo xam ne du ñu mën a am xaalis tamit for example to fund their schools amoon time yoo xam ne yu bëri bi nga ko bëggee extend people ñoo dee bilal seen boppa school oo leen pour ñu mën a dépense school yooyu noonu dafa am history bu gudda so da nga gis ne it's a form of daawa it's a form of loo xam ne tam pour wan nit ñi ne ñëpp nekk nañ christian for exemple ñëpp ñu ngi try comme population bi su bëree rek di nga gis ne loolu gars yi nañ si mën a amee comme fund and the like so di nga gis ne tey soo gisee lu moo isi problème moo isi mooy soo demee si school yi tey sax ñu ngi fa dugal loo xam ne mooy human rights bi ñu ko fa dugal nga fa ne dañ fay jàng axi nit du loolu de dafa am lu ñoo ñëw pour wan la ne everybody has a right boobu noonu lu ñu si jublu mooy nga mën a accept diversity boobu lu ñu si jublu mooy lesbian ak gay yi in long run ñoom su ñoo liggéey duñu liggéey tey long run la ñoo liggéey si kanam a kanam so loolu yëpp dugg na si school si ba nga xamee ni am na benn history boo ne amoon na Sénégal bu yàggut seen essay writing bi lu ñu fa def mooy affaire gay ak lesbian so nga gis ne Sénégal yëpp jóg ñu frown loolu noonu ñu wane ne essay boobu noonu is a plan so noonu la ñoo def so soo gisee school si yëpp mission school si yëpp nga gis ne ñu dëgër ne doo def fail mooy ne they don't want to fail in their mission so their mission mooy either suñu leen mënta christianize waaye ñu wàññi seen belief so loolu la nekk ak wokkoon ba pare soo ko xoolee ba xool da nga ko bañ ba nga nangu ko rek tuubalu ñu bari de waaye def neen gars yi seen spirit in Islam mu dem down ba nga xam ne tey et muslim ñi mën naa jóg génn on télé di saaga wala di wax yoo xamante ni dafa yaaxa dama wax ko bu ma commencé am na ñoo xamante ni waruñ ko wax comme que yow soo waxee da ngaa yaaxa yow noppil nga bàyyi ñuy wax ñu defar ñoom ñu defar moo tax boo ko commencé mooy ne isu bi nekkul affaire yi ne jullit yi ñu ngi xeex chrétien yi soo ko jëlee foofu noonu dafa rong parce que isu bi dafa nekk ne suñ ko xeexee dafay jàppale chrétien boo xam ne mu ngi dem jàngal si beneen school boo xam ne nekku di def Christian religious knowledge daf koo jàppale tamit gars yi boole ko si subject si di same way tam muslim bi tamit dina am comme lii suñ ko xeexee dafay jàppale chrétien bi jàppale ak muslim bi so di nga gis ne tey ñu suñ problème mooy scholarship yu gars yi dañ joxe yëpp ñu ngi ko jox muslim yi fine dégg la waaye dafa amoon aims and objective of the scholarship te scholarship bi duñ la yóbbu because science ñu ngi ko jàngee soo demee ba Qatar ñu ngay jàng science foofu noonu soo demee Kuwait ñu ngay jàng science foofu duñ la fa yóbbu dañ laa yóbbu foo xam ne ni St. Mary's University something like that you can be finally Christianized or ñu wàññi sa degree muslim loolu la ngay joxe moo tax ñu lay jooy yëpp di wax ne all the scholarships are given to the Muslims it was not given to them on zero price dafa am lu tax gars yi def ko foofu noonu ñoom xam nañ loolu noonu there is no free lunch dafa am lu tax gars yi def ko foofu noonu soo dem war a nangu dëgga soo dafa gars yi def ko foofu noonu lii moo tax ba tey ñu am lot of problem soo demee ba Fula Bantang di nga gis ne St. Teresa's Opop bi ñu ko ooy St. Teresa's Senior Secondary School Fula Bantang Senior Secondary School ñu ko fekk ay Balde ay Jàllo yoo xam ne ni ay Christian leen so foofu tamit gars yi am nañ boos dañoo ñëw jox la xaalis jox la di la noccoo après tamit nit ki moom loo ko jox rek soo waxee moom rek di nga mën a am jeexantal si moom so am na ñu bëri tey soo ko xoolee foofu tamit ay Christian leen waaye ay Balde leen sant ay Jàllo ñu ngi foofu in Gambia in the Upper River soo demee foofu da nga ko fa fekk man dem naa foofu jàngal naa ñoom am na seen kanam you have to be very careful what you say soo gisee Balde nga fa ne Balde boobu muslim la Balde boobu Christian you have to know what you are talking about so jeexintal yooyu ne mooy ne dañu jaaree gannaaw soo demee si school bi nga fa ne yaa ngay jàng Maths English ñoom ñi ngay def foofu noonu extracurricular activity di jël Malik di ko def mu depict Jesus in terms of Christmas te loolu doo mën a bañ parce que ñu bëri ñu ngi wax ne ñun defoon nañ lii waaye ba tey ñu ngi nekk muslim déedéet muslim mu'min nekkul benn soo su ñëwee into deep issues nga gis ne dina mën a différencier loolu noonu dañ ko daan forcer gars yi soo gars yi suñ ko nangu ko dañ ko daan boole si extra te foog nga participer si loolu noonu soo moo tax tey soo xoolee jullit yëpp ñu bëri ragal nañu sa jóg sax pour wax ne veil bi dañ ko war a araw ragal neen parce que loolu la def seen brain yi ñu def leen liberal muslim yoo xam ne ni duñ dee fight seen right xamuñ ñoom seen islam fu mu toll because lu ma waxoon ne nit ki ku ko ñam rek moo xam lu mu saf soo nekku si islam dugaloo si islam bu baax sa faith day grow sa faith su grow nag yow yii yëpp du la day intéressé li moo tax ñu am problème in fighting this waaye lii for example nekku ne xeex between Muslim and Christian but they fight to conventional school to help our Muslim girls or the Muslim brothers to also manifest their faith, inshallah.
Thank you very much, Malik. Thank you so much. I am delighted, and I guess we are learning. Personally, myself, I am really learning, and we had to go to another topic before we close, and which is very important. But Umar, I will give you maybe 3 minutes. You just summarized the impact of this education or the history that you just mentioned. What were the impact on the people who attended, or even people whose relative attended the schools?
Thank you very much, Lamin. I think Malik highlighted some of the impacts.
In Mandinka, I mean.
I just want to add something in English. That's why, Lamin, you see people who are educated conventionally from the 60s, 70s, 80s. They are different than people who are educated in late 80s, 90s to 2000. Because those who were educated in early days, despite being Muslims, definitely they were deprived of the knowledge of religion. That's why today most of the people that will go out and condemn issues that are fundamental in Islam, these are people that were indoctrinated, as Malik mentioned. So the dynamic is changing. Now we are having people who are going to schools, open schools, being given opportunity to know their religion, being given opportunity to learn, have that right, know those rights. Definitely, if you want to treat those people as those in the 80s and 70s, you are making a great mistake. We must live to the reality of the day. Labin coming from Kabin Kachata, Islamic educational system on Yaminfo, Eko coming I Kusifa Jimal Lenat, education system. I Kujamal Lenatin Kantu Mojamal Letato Karamolto, Illustrated Dino Balundila Imansong. Yepata ku jamala sododi adna fam fodoli da karambul to kanto wato nimmolu to damal karambul be to lebul jama ni la fa karanna kata special high school fo stela karambul to adum e be ka pare non ka muslimolu dingol bre dino kara da fa karanna nyami ayatina jama be kono doli da dol be ku dol dol wakilta e pata ku jama je hani sa ni wol dul kata de fonkaje ko definitely wo kam be konole hanusai wodo karawo system min nati wo kara wala ne kaje bi muslim ka wuli miyan ko muslimo di ngollem ni muslimo wulte muslimo be nyanto kella wala fanka muslimo kella adu arda muslimo di ngollem wato do bi entaka bala fay kanto min kada mo jarta minna yolo ye mo karandi minna wala so ye karandi minna ye dalandi minna ye wala long ayatina kabir ma muslimo ya londo soto dron ay problème woni create kabirin ya mansa kudani ya kalam dago muslima dinu da karanta muslima dinu be karanka wala nan gogo mi labar mi karanda watu la ni mi karanda sala kul faratal mi ka karan sai kabo 90s kana sai olu moldi mi an ko le dino karanne e yin kudul fana so ila mira nyal ka fadal wala ni muslimol fo jibe kana kunda molbe talarin fulale mi tubab garonge folo do karannalo ni sai karannal le miro bon kef because folo do karannalo jama bi di mon opportunity pour que le dino karam e milo dio da doya batale bare sai karannalu yela dino lon ko ni mo mala dino la bika kanu adunga bika kili ala dino bika bata dino wol mam bata dino kudo wol mam pare ani hani la ngon si ko kundu dino ko kan di malon ni mam mi malon bare sai mi kana e dino lo e dino kanu a jarte le ko be la fukaje ko dino ya samba yenta samba jami adun hanata ko ba ke kam bu nyani hormol ko bi nga nyami kayro kono o be ke kam o do nyumu fenne di mi alon ko nyanta mirol kala dunya kulu ka falin dunya ka falin nyam molle mirol ka falin ngol nyam kunun dolu so dolu molu dolu fama lo son damin nan kunun lombali ya kama nin sembe sto baliya e son do tonyin diro minna to nyaabe dam ni go bo tonyin dir kilimo la dimbalu kan ila londo so kola adu ila nyanto longo so kola e go bo la ka ate tamanola wala na kuma la fonse kulu korosi ma fennati mi alon ko aben bilbe ya bunya be dinol be bunya momo ela dino ya karang inta karana nyami akuma tele fulan jom fanan e momo la fala dino nyin tamman la ya tamma matara kayro ko nak.
Thank you very much. Manta diamo senda jambake because I have another issue. I'm lafa pro element highlight. Wala mnyintiko the hijab issue because the matter we diamo kanda membe kanda is like a bit introduction. We want to go back in history. Puru ngalom botana mentole. Puru ngalom botana mentole. Wase mako ngalom kamune bindi hona. Minaka hijab bani ningina in schools. Niaji be commando. That was a time yaje minane molbe stop jang kala dungolale. And I think our father, our Sheikh Imam Abdullah Fati, was the one who was bold enough Kalo State House to address the president in front of everybody. Record still Abdul. Those days, Nimbulba Lamuele Bundala Sorima, I can still remember Mbalamuel Lumina, Yabundala Somi Balamuel Conor. But at the end of the recording, Alabandla, you see people crying like Munamekeri. Because everybody felt in long tonya. What happened was very wrong. But Imam Fati was the first. Atile moti me alanka lota. Barako nananga moyala ko ngamwe mola ko I try le pour kaje pasula na kata ko la baraman chance. Aje ko say maybe I will go now to the member na diama ko la. He did it. Okonyi manna continue. Ngalon ko fana yaje me nyato do mandin ko take. Wato me alanko. He wants to alafa mo be able la kala la jat. Especially civil servants all. Kafobe mo be kaleta do ko la. Who were the one who spoke against it? A lot of people. Some of them are still here. Or many of them are still here. They were the one who talked. Because people have right to dress anyhow they want. And also the country is not an Islamic country. It's a quote-unquote secular, which is not the reality. But okay, back then, I abandoned. It has an impact. I stopped. Narafonya demanding a swifter. Anatna mobe nagakele. Outcry narna. Mobe diam. Ano biro keda. Ndaman scholars ya me alonko kafujang. Mo ngaloko tonya. Tonya mbebe sonno konna banko da mato la daula islamia. Hana misal feko. Muslimu le serge muslimu banko le fanamu. Bar kome ngala tamandiri nyal manta lorin loi kam me alko 100% sharia loi belaro kam amantra wanyam. So wakannako ngajo ka sekeno wasa kole ya domandi mul man dia mo sendi ba ko especially membe den muslimati bari like CSO activist olu Cristiano mo jama dia mo ko sifa man nyana kake anu to nyalem. But I wish, and I was asking myself, where were those people when it was banned? And kabra banda fana wala kabring a imposter na imo do karam mitawa. So at that time, it was, if it was okay, the issue la argument ka basement ka wala ko people have right to dress anyhow they want. Where was this issue when it was banned? Many kadum, don't they have right to dress anyhow they want? Well, that was a time, like in Western countries, most of the countries among restrictions but like countries like France, if you have to niba hijab if you work in a public office in abuka dunye. So we see for France mol meto mwele hijab ko ka problem motaje. But nyata demanding last year or 2021 kabring of Taliban natana. We heard from media whether it is true or not. Kajako Taliban they are imposing hijab on female students and Musul Kang. It was an outcry all over the world. People have Musul, they have right to dress. I started to a point, one of the activists in Afghanistan, I like traditional clothing, I will finish that. Now she was proud, because what dress wearing among Kalabasoto, I agilibab malami come and do. So I was like, okay, where did you know that you have a traditional dress like this? It's like when you are wearing your pants, your short skirt, and musifal, you never realize that you have a traditional dress. So because being hijab is somehow imposed, you realize that you have a traditional dress. But the argument of the West upon the Afghanistan, Muslim, okay, female have right to dress. They have right to determine what they wear. Okay, in France, don't they have right to determine what they will have to wear? It's the same argument. I have a right to wear, so I choose to do hijab. You said no. Someone imposed hijab on me. You said no. He has a right to dress how he wants to do. You see the hypocrisy and inconsistency? Something is a problem here. So I want us to talk about this hijab issue. These are not, and I think there was a time even Fegami, I think, I'm sorry, Fegam, so some were called at the NIA because of the hijab call. Imam Fadrin, some of them, they have to go to some schools here. But Some brothers are here, they were called to NIA because of this hijab issue. For reasons you still don't know. So, I want us to go back to some of these things. And if I emphasize, we are dealing with it as a violation of right, not a problem between two faiths in this country. So I want you to highlight some of these things.
Let me thank you very much. I think I will start from where you end. That is, this is not between Muslims and Christians. These are people that feel that their rights have been violated, and they redress it where it should be redressed. Or they're seeking to redress it where it's supposed to be redressed. And they need to be commended to do that. This is it's unprecedented and it's historic. So let's not view it as Muslims against Christians. No. As far as Islam is concerned, if Christians' rights have been violated, definitely will come right and condemn, irrespective of who violates their rights. And interestingly, it's not only mission schools that have been in this case. You have Gambia Senior Secondary School. The last time I checked, the whole admin is a pure public school, and the whole admin, the last time I checked, where it was headed by a Muslim. So it's not like Muslim against Muslim, but these are people who feel that their rights are violated, and they want to. They want their rights to be respected. That is all. And I think all genuine Gambians, across faiths, should support them to ensure that their rights have been restored. Now, the veil issue. This is very interesting, Lamin. You see, as I said, these problems have been going it has been going for many years. Veil issue, praying in school premises, these are problems. But in order for it to come to public domain, it started in early 2000, I think 2001, the St. Teresa's Veil saga. This is where, to my knowledge, where it was publicly debated. What happened was, it was in St. Teresa's when some students, because by then, the Islamic awakening was taking center stage. You have, Federation of Gambian Muslim Student Organization, you have other youth organizations coming, sensitizing people their religion. And I mean, generally, you understand that before, we are Muslims, but definitely, this veil issue, was not emphasized. That does not mean it was not part of it was there, but it was not very prevalent in the early days because of knowledge and exposure and other things. So this to be to be prevalent, this due to the sensitization, people now, you see the impact that I was talking about. People were not given opportunity to be educated. Now they have educated, they want to follow what they learn about their religion. Now there were girls in St. Teresa's that were deprived of veils. And it was a tough thing. I think many people were aware of that. And it went to an extent whereby, the boys, it was an examination that they want to deprive girls, and the boys also came out that without, if their sisters are not allowed, they will not. So it was a little fracas, and it was a Gabese exams. And I remember, in fact, according to the information that I received, that very day, their paper was late. But later, consultation with the Christian Council, Muslim government, they were later allowed to sit to the examination, because definitely they knew it was their right, and you cannot deprive them from sitting to exams because they exercise their fundamental right. So they were allowed to do the exam. But after that, because when they were allowed to do the exam, that sends a message that definitely they were right, because if they were not right, they wouldn't have allowed them to sit to that exam after that fracas. But unfortunately, after that, the former president came with a declaration of banning veils in schools, which really, jeopardized everything, and has exacerbated the stance of those schools, who do not want veils in their schools. And things like, this is where the Gambia High, the public school, they took it from there, and it was very ugly. So later the president retracted, and but still, there are some schools who hold that notion that it is not part of the school rules, and all the argument is around that it is not part of the school rules. So as time goes, it started losing from one school to another, Later you can see in many schools, they don't restrict it, but still there are schools, that restrict. So time to time the problem will come and it will be negotiated. People will negotiate back and forward, negotiate back and forward. Not long ago, I think it's the same St. Teresa's again, another problem came up, and in other schools, which led to this lawsuit. So definitely, as I said, people's awareness in their religion and to know their rights and the mentality of people, definitely what was accepted based on ignorance and not having that zeal for your religion could not be accepted anymore. So what is happening now is these are individuals who feel that their rights have been violated and been supported by their parents. You see the change of shift. When it started on St. Teresa's, just imagine the parent-teacher association, the parents came out and said they did not send their children to put on veils. Let them go to school without veils. You see, parents were supporting them. But now you see it's a shift. Now you see the type of parents, you see the shift of generation. But now we have parents now who also know their religion and they want to practice their religion. That is why if you look at some of these girls, these are minors. So you can see their parents are behind them. So you see the support from the parents. The girls feel that their rights have been violated. The parents equally feel about that. And the society also feel about that. So definitely, this is what it led to what we have today. And people must commend them because the Constitution is the last resort of our disputes. When you are not happy about anything, you don't go to the streets. You don't vandalize. What you do, you follow the due process. There are provisions in the Constitution, that they cited and they ban on to go to the court. So they must be commended, and people should not bully them. People should not say, okay, there are people behind them. No, these people, their parents are behind them, and they have done the right thing. And we believe the outcome of this case will definitely bring about a lasting solution to this problem, because it must be addressed, and it must be addressed amicably, so that we continue to live in peace. We continue to coexist this as before. We can still go to the same schools. We can, I do not buy the idea to say, because someone is saying that why not they go back to private? No, we don't want a situation where we said, this school is for Christian school, this is for Muslim schools. No, we don't want that division. We want to coexist. Coexist where Muslims and students are before we go to the same school, but we respect each other's religious values. These people are not asking for more. They are not rebellious. They are not radical. In fact, rebels and radicals don't go to court to address their. That is why if I see somebody say they are radicals, they are extreme. My brother, they are terrorists. Terrorists, radicals, they don't go to court for redress. They take law into their own hands. So these people are very peaceful. These people are very peaceful. They are taking going through the due process, and anticipating that the outcome of the court would solve this problem once and for amicably, where everybody, as enshrined in the Constitution, everybody would have right to manifest, to belong to a religion, and to manifest it either privately or publicly. So basically, this is this saga going back and front. Definitely, this should be, I believe, this should be the last point where we have a lasting solution to this program.
Mr. Boyan, thank you. will say Uncle Bo. Thank you so much. Malik, I am coming to you. Yes, we will talk about tolerance, peaceful coexistence, but I just want to give you 3 minutes. The hijab banning, I mentioned some history. When it was banned, later it was imposed on civil servants. And for the fact that this has been going on, it's not even once. I think what happened is this year, when some people complained that their bags were being searched, that their veils were being taken. So people say that one is just the height of it. That one is just so extreme. Because let's say, for example, even if you deny me and you said, okay, you cannot wear hijab in my school, it is part of my school rule, which I doubt. Because for me, I've been asking about this school rule. Please, I want to see the school rule of these schools where it is clearly mentioned or where it is clearly discouraged, denied, or prohibit wearing of veil. I actually want to see that, because most of the time when people are talking about the school rule, even though I usually ask, what is the significance of school rule in the face of the Constitution? when those people are bringing those rules, what were they thinking? How were they thinking? And even if they have something, the school rule is there, and we get to a point, yes, you may have some people who don't care. They may not even wear hijab. They will go to school. They don't care. That is fine. Or probably they want to wear hijab, but they say, okay, it's not allowed, and they don't care. They'll go to school. That's fine. They don't complain. You will not force them to complain. But if you have few schools, 7, 5, 10 people who felt that they cannot continue with this environment, and they don't rebel, they don't insult, they don't go to the streets, they don't vandalize, things in the school. They say, we live in a civilized society that is run by laws. We have to go to the court and address the court, and we leave the matter to the government to decide what happens or what will happen. This is the most civilized thing that they can do. Those who are against this, they are on the media everywhere, just making noise everywhere. These people have taught you lessons. Wallahi, these girls have taught the entire nation a lesson. And they have also vindicated us and make those people who send false allegations on us. I usually say that I have never bothered about it. If you call me a terrorist, and I am never bothered, because I always prove you wrong. You will go to the police, you will never see my record there. If you go to my community, alhamdulillah, I'm not bragging, but I'm one of the most peaceful person in my community. And even the Christians there, if you go to them, they will attest to that. So this is how we are. This is not only me. This is how all of us are. We are the only people in this country who will discourage demonstration. It doesn't matter what is the reason you came out. You always say, we are not part of this. If you want to talk to the president, we will find an opportunity to meet him and talk to him, or even to write a letter to him. But we are not going to go to the street and say whatever you want to say, or destroy things and vandalize it. We don't do that. And in the history of this country, everything that happened in this country, either a coup, attempted coup, demonstration, strikes that had potential to put this country into flames, our people were not part of it. TRRC was mentioned here. Jana Commission happened here. Even those who were adversely mentioned, when they came out, most people learned the truth. We know what actually happened. Our people, we are not like this. So you keep telling us we are extremists, we are this, we are that. You have all this violence that happened here. You have all this fitna that happened here. We are not part of them. So who actually is the extremist? Who actually has a potential to put fire in this country? I always say this country is ours. It belongs to us. We don't have second home. If this country turned otherwise, it is us and our family. We have nowhere to go. This is what we have. It will take us everything to make sure that the peace and stability that we know in this country will remain. And anybody who wants to be an opposition to that, you are an opposition to us. We will never ever participate, and we will never ever support you to do something that will jeopardize the peace and stability of this country. It doesn't matter who you are. Even if you are our brothers, we will stand against you, and we don't care who you are. Definitely. So these are some of the things that I personally learned. Because if probably me, I may go to online, or maybe I will have a program. But these people say, we never had them having a problem with their teachers or their authorities. They say, we'll go to court. You are the one who is against this ranting on social media. They teach you a lesson. You have to be matured enough. Like these young girls, they are matured enough. They don't insult anybody. You are there insulting them. They don't even respond to you. They took matter to the court. That's how a civilized society does. That's how this young girl had taught the entire world how a civilized Muslim behave, how a civilized society runs, how a civilized country with constitution, with laws runs. And all of us have a lesson that we need to learn. And we can never stop learning from this. If we have tried to give a blind eye to this, or we are to the deaf ear to it, will be a form of arrogance. But the young girls definitely, despite their ages, taught the entire world how a particular society or a civilized society runs and behaves. Malik, I wanted to, I think I said I am hosting, but I wanted to just talk about some of these things with regards to hijab banning. What is your take on this?
It will be that soko whole be whole.
Reflecting on the history.
Yeah, dafa fekk ne comme li ngeen wax ni the history of this hijab ban in the Gambia nga xamne former president moom tamit di Second Republic baanoon na ko fi ba am yenn ustaas yu jóg wala ñu ne Imam Fari jógoon na adresse ko te ñëwoon nañ back waaye comme loo wax indi inconsistency in our how we play with our human right, the inconsistency. Whenever Muslims get up and say human right, da nga gis dañ ko dee mën a peek twist ko teg ko fena waaye whenever another party complain of human right ñu jox ko right. Omar Bojang wax na ko fii ñu dee jóg di defend when soo gisee ne comme tooñ leen beneen faith comme Christianity muslim rek la ñoo dee jóg di defend ko loolu kenn du ko mën a weddi so su muslim yi tamit amee problème the same muslim tamit ñoo dee ñëw fight muslim si in defense of the Christian the same you see so da nga wax lu am important Lamin loo xamante ni mooy ne right to dress mooy am naa right pour ma solo nu ma war a solwee loolu soo demee si réewi tubaab dañ war a nag bàyyi xel nag tubaab yu lay wax ndax christian leen ndax atheiste leen dafa am ñu si bëri ñoom atheiste leen gëmuñ diine so ñoo nga gis tubaab bu wax nga fa ne mu ngay jàppale christianité wala mu ngay jàppale islam fekk moom mu ngi si beneen diine bu mu bëgg a puus tamit ñu bëri nag duñ dee xam yeneen tubaab yi suñu jógee wax ñoom atheiste leen moo tax ñu lay wax ne mun ngaa sol lu la ne da nga gis ne nit ki dem soo ne mun ngaa sol lu la ne rek kon ma mun naa muuru so su ma muuru nga ne ma déedéet waxuma bii mun ngaa sol lu la ne waaye waxuma bii xam nga loolu dafa mel ni am na lu ma ne xarit fight so loolu moo ñu sonal tey issue bi pour ñu solve dafa yomba bu président Yaya Jammeh waxee ne mun dañoo def ñëpp véel ñëpp dañoo sol ba army bi sax dañ doon def véel by force la woon waaye ñëpp dañ jóg am na ñu jóg ñu yuuxu ko ñu ne loolu déedéet nit ñi dañ am right pour sol leen ne te loolu président moo ko déclaré waxuma school rule de school rule soo fa demee doo fa fekka ne warloo véel doo ko fekka xanaa gaa ñu ameen ko tey suñu déggee programme yi ñu dem ñu ameen ko léegi nii dugal ko fa waaye doo fa fekka ne doo véel because loolu soo ko fa bindee school rule dañ ko dee jox xale bi mu yóbbu ko si kër bi rit ko warloo fee véel loolu soo ko gisee kon loolu parent teacher association dinañ ko challenge so da ngaa gis ne dañ faa def uniforme dafa am lu ko dee yaaxa dafa am lu ko du yaaxa loolu tamit dañ ko war a xam mooy ne uniforme lu war a ñu alaaw xale mu sol kawaas ba si omo mi loolu dafa bokk si uniforme kawaas ba si omo moom bokk si uniforme waaye xale si solee kawaas ba si omo mi boobu façon la boobu mun nañ koo bàyyi xale bi sol glove ñu ne boobu ne amul problème ba tey bokk si school uniforme bi bu ko loolu bokk si uniforme it was not mentioned su ne day jox package of uniforme dina jox kawaas dina jox glove ok xale bi ñëw nag mu sol scarf ñu ko woowee head tie comme like Ibadu nga ne non waaye bii moom bokkut mu nga sol kawaas mu nga sol glove waaye bii bokkut dafa mel ni kon boobu noonu dafa identical to a particular religion so dafa mel ni dafa am benn religion boo xam ne boobu leen nekk di sanction di ko xee so loolu moo fa nekk su dëkk fii comme si jaama comme ni ko Omar Bojang waxee waxuñ ne school dafa war a dem private a former minister of education wax na ne kon ñu dem private kon dafa mel ni comme nit ki su nekkee si place daf leen nëbba comme lu mu gëm waaye su fa génnee mu wone lu mu gëm loolu won nañu dem private boobu waxuñ ne nga dem private loolu soo ñu bëgg su war a dem private ñu dañoo taxaw ne benn school yi dem private demal nga nekk government funded waaye lu ñu bëgg mooy nga accord nga xam ne school yëpp lu ñoo jàngale mooy métier ak ñu yar nit ñi si ni ñuy développé waaye tam ñu bàyyi nit ñi tamit ku nekk christian mu wane christian itam mooy ne sooy dem sa cooj nga dem sa cooj nga jànga CRE ku nekk muslim jànga ARK dem juma su moo dem juma gars yi dañ dee wax ne comme par exemple kii wax na fi lu am important Lamin soo ñëwee si muslim si ok CSO or human rights activists yi ñoom tey ñu ngi taxaw di wax ne this is nonsense waaye di nga gis ne xale yi ñoom dañ dem court te human rights activists yi ñoo dee ñëw di wax ne génne la ngeen dem protest ñoom ñoo dee wax loolu ñoo dee wax ne génne la ngeen protest ngeen taal dëkk bi ñoom ñoo ko dee wax so tey soo amee xale yi dem court ngeen loolu nonsense la waaye yow yaa dee wax nit ñi génne la ngeen dem protest ngeen taal dëkk bi so yow nga ne loolu sa fundamental right pour nga taal dëkk bi but it's not somebody's fundamental right pour mu demand just a head scarf mu def ko loolu loolu nguur bi war a déglu ñooñu so ma waxaat ne extremist buñ dee mention loolu dama bëgg nguur bi sax dafa war a frown on that because Gambia amul extremist loolu lii bi international wall bi moo ko dee use international wall bi nag ñu ko dee use yu bëri ay 80s leen ñeneen dañ dee fight comme ñu wàññi sa doole suñu la nee extremiste rek da ngaa wàññi sa doole tuuti soo gëmutee loolu c'est word boo xam ne dañ ko dee use boo xam ne daf dee merloo nit ba pare soo ko usee si kaw nit ki da nga gis ne yaa ngay oote loo xam ne amut fi comme ni ko on boo ñu waxee ay terroristes ay extrémistes ay criminal lu ñu ut code criminal yi criminal yëpp a ngay dem di toj këri jàmbur yi loolu ñoo lu ñu ut code soo loolu comme nit su koy wax extrémiste dafa war a bàyyi xelam loolu képp koo xam ne yaa ngi ko wax da nga war a apologize parce que loolu amu fi nguur bi sax dafa war a frown on that warta nangu sax kenn di ooyee nit extrémiste boo gis ne bu yàggu bu ñu affaire yi constitution nguur bi tam génn na wax na a form of extrémiste loolu dañ war a daw sax di ko wax parce que loolu nekku fi loolu suñ ko waxee dafay niroo comme saaga soo xoolee government bi tam maa ngi leen a wax ne they should not fail in this because lii is an opportunity for them to address this lii suñ ko bàyyee addressing ko dina isi wax leneen it's an opportunity for them comme que agana court léegi is the highest point léegi nañ ko waxte because government bi soo gisee gars yi ministry of education daf dee am sometimes some discrepancies comme nu ko kii dee waxee inconsistency because da nga gis ne levy xale bi nga teg ko xaalis ne ko fayal dara si school bi loolu ministry of basic and secondary education nangul ko de soo ko levy xale bi loolu da ngeen a am problème waaye daf dee wax ne su fekkee PTA bi nangu ne comme parent teacher association ñoo ñëw si school bi ñu nangu ak school bi ñu ne waa ñun dinañ fay nangam kon loolu kon dagan na yaa ma understand so léegi kon fekkee ne xale itam dañ jóg parents yëpp jóg nañ dem bëgg a dem veil bi ñu alaaw ko si school bi kon ba tey dagan na kon ñooñu itam nañ nangu veil bi dem si school bi because loolu nekkul si ruus yi ne doo veil xanaa ñu def ko fa tey waaye nekkul fa uniforme leen wax te uniforme na lu ko yaaxa veil bokku si dafa dem international yi am na ñoo xam ne ñu ngi play football dañoo def veil bi yaaxut veste bi yaaxut uniforme bi su fekkee ne ñoom jubluwuñu si dara di simple problème moo nekk ne bàyyil veil bi dem waaye gis naa koo xam ne mu ne loolu mégu sens parce que yaa nga def veil yaa ngi solo sipa nu mu gën a guddee nu mu gën a gàtte bi te yaaxut uniforme bi we all know that ñu dem neen abu ko basic school sipa leen di def ñeneen nañ ko def bem gudda suñ paree ñu sol kawaas loolu yëpp xale bi mu ngi koo def pour make sure ne dina dem jànga plus tam diineem tamit mu ngi koo jéem a saama foo naa loolu dañ si war a jàppalante ak képp koo xam ne yaa ngi wax si lii di saaga wala di bugg a wax ne veil bi amul njëriñ na nga bàyyi sa xel na nga xam ne tamit lii yàlla moo ko digle si alxuraan kon yow nekkuloo di xeex xale yi rek wala di xeex sa own boppa wala sa diine waaye tam na nga bàyyi xel ne tamit yaa ngi xeexaale tamit diine boo xam ne ni yàlla moo ko isi te loolu sa fay ak sa punishment loolu des na si yàlla incha allah.
Thank you very much, Malik. I think it is important also we highlight that because maybe some people might be afraid that okay, maybe when this matter is taken to court, the hijab may be obligatory in school. That's not the concern here. I don't think that is even the concern of the people who take this matter to the court. The only issue is allow me to put this on my head. If Fatu doesn't want to do it, fine. Fatu has a right to, if he wants, let him just wear uniform and whatever he wants to wear and go to school. But if Mariam wants to wear hijab plus uniform, allow Mariam to do so because he wants to do it. Because like you said, hijab, when you wear hijab, like the headscarf they do, it has nothing to do with the uniform. Uniform is clearly there. If you wear a short, a long one onto your ankle here or up to your knee, and that is okay. You wear gloves, you wear whatever you want to wear, and that is fine. Even sometimes some people wear a jacket. And the uniform will be covered, and those things are normal. But the hijab, that a small hijab that will cover your head, and you are frown upon that. When you see that, you actually know there is actually an agenda behind this, and that one has been tolerated for so long. And like Omar says, terrorists don't go to court. Extremists, they don't go to court. Criminals, they don't go to court. They take matter to they put law in their hands and do whatever they want to do. But civilized people realize that they live in a society. They live in a country that has laws. And if they have anything, a dispute, they have to refer to that law and allow to the authorities to decide. That actually does these young girls have taught us a lesson. All of us, including whoever you are, human rights activists, whatever activist. And I am surprised, Malik, and I will say this here. What if, for example, Nusrat, Daddy Job, and other school, what if 5-10 Christians take a matter to the court and said, we have been obliged to put a hijab on? What do you think will be a reaction of these activists?
Yeah, they will just get up.
Exactly. What do you think will be a reaction? For example, people that are going to the Nusrat, they are going to Daddy Job, they are going to Muslim high school. They said we no more want to wear hijab. For example, I'm speaking hypothetically. They say we don't want to wear hijab, and these people have asked us to do it. We want to take the matter to the court so that we will be allowed to come to the school without hijab, without veil. What do you think people will say? They will say they are right. This is their fundamental right. They should be allowed to dress anyhow they want. That's the whole country is going to sing. Nobody will even dispute. But on the contrary, you see the double standard, the inconsistency, the hypocrisy. You see it. It is clearly seen. I told a friend of mine, I don't know whether he is listening. that was a beauty pageant not long ago. A woman wear this kankurang thing, a farah attire sort of. Okay. And it becomes a huge debate online that people say it's a sabotage to our culture. It's an insult to our culture. I saw again the activist who was in the forefront fighting this. They said women have right to do this. They can do blah blah blah. Which I don't care. If you wear kankurang, you don't wear. What is my business? It's even irrelevant to me. But I told him I am actually surprised. Someone who is in the forefront fighting women to be allowed to put in this cultural blah blah blah, which has no significance in our life. You are actually silent about people whose fundamental rights, religious rights, are being violated. You are silent, and you are telling me this is a different issue. And all these organizations that are here, Network Against Gender-Based Violence, Paradise Foundation, Think Young Girl, all these Foundation, Ministry of Gender, Women Bureau, blah, blah, blah. All of them are quiet. They will not talk. And these are your people who are in this problem. When they have a problem, like for example, FGM or something like this, the entire world will cry. You will see all these organizations coming out. What is the difference between those girls and these girls? What are the difference between these girls? Are they not Gambians? Are they not humans? They are humans. They are Gambians. They have rights. They are citizens like any other guys that you fight for. But all of them are silent. You know why? They are afraid of their donors. All of them, they are more loyal to their donors than even to Allah. I can tell you this. They will lie. They will cheat. I'm not saying all of them. Before they will say he has, I accuse. I'm not saying all of them, but we know some of them. We work in the media.